So we are going to take a look at this lesson um, and uh, talked about free verse and about imagery last time. And this time we're going to take a look at some figurative language and a couple of sound devices in poetry, including alliteration and onomatopoeia. Alliteration is the sense, or is the repetition of a consonant sound. So, um, something like the damn duck did, and so on and so forth. So, let's see if um, there has to have been a reason why I put this. Oh, I know why I did that. Okay, so we'll check that out in a second. Forgive my messiness here. I'm just trying to do this kind of ad hoc. So, yeah. Anyway, the vowel part, or the vowel complement to that, is an assonance. And so assonance is a repetition of a vowel sound. Onomatopoeia is those words that um, sound like what they sound like, the word, like bang and boing and whoosh and stuff like that. So they're fun words. So here I have uh, um, an article about one of the most famous poems. And actually, I don't even know. I'm sure it's in the textbook. But let's take a look at it real quick. Um, Poetry Foundation is great because I take a lot of stuff from there. Usually find almost any poem that you want. um, so a lot of times people look at this poem and it's read at graduations and it's read at major decision points in people's lives because it talks about two roads diverging in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be when traveler long I stood and long and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Here's an example of onomatopoeia, or sorry, of alliteration. Wanted wear. Um, the last stanza goes, I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So, in here, um, we often think that uh, the poem's written because he's trying to make a decision. And then he finally makes that decision. Well, um, the interesting thing about this poem is that it was written, of course, by Robert Frost, um, and um, let's see. Oh, I don't know where it is. I'm sure it is here somewhere. Anyway, so Robert Frost um, was friends with the English poet. Um, well, I don't know where it went. At least this is how it would be in in class too. So, all right. Well, he had a friend, an English poet, who was very very indecisive, and the story goes that Robert Frost actually was making fun of his friend um, uh, in deciding whether or not to enlist in the British Army during World War One, and his friend, egged on by Robert Frost and his poem, he did join the army, and he was killed shortly after he arrived in mainland Europe in um, like 1917 or something. Um, so um, so yeah. Um, the big takeaway from that, I think, for me, is that um, in many cases, uh, poems do not have to mean anything from the author necessarily. Like, you don't have to know what the author meant. It doesn't matter what the author meant. Now that the poem's out there, the poem has significance to you because it has significance to you. Stories as well. Now, there's some argument in the literary field about um, whether that's an acceptable thing to say. The opposite of that is yes, of course um, we take a look at what the author intent was, but um, that has been countered by something called the intentional fallacy, and the intentional fallacy says that um, it's a fallacy to try to base how good the poem is off of what the author intended, because we can't possibly know what the author intended. Um, and that's kind of more what I subscribe to, although I do see the point for author intent at times. An example of this can be seen actually with Harry Potter, for example, where people have said, "Oh, now it doesn't matter what who wrote the book. What matters is that the the Potterverse belongs to all of us," and I think that's pretty interesting. So here we have a bunch of different videos. They Some of them are more interesting than others. Um,
Hello and welcome to Poetry Techniques in 30 Minutes.
that one's not super interesting, but these two, this one and then the one before it, are very interesting. And so I want you to take a look at those. And then I want to talk real quick about um, form and how form, even form that exists outside the actual form of the poem, how it can inform what we how we view the poem. So in this one, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? This is Shakespeare, and very formal poem. It's a Shakespearean sonnet. Um, in and the rhythm is very specific. Um, we will probably talk about the rhythm on Wednesday of the poem, and then we have Edgar Allan Poe, which is a different kind of rhythm. As soon as it starts here.
Once upon the midnight dreary.
But there's still a lot of good rhythm and meter to talk about there, and we'll talk about that more on Wednesday as well. But then we have the same the same poem narrated by the same excuse me, gosh, narrated by the same person, James Earl Jones.
The Raven.
But
Once upon a midnight dreary,
While I pondered weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door.
There's some visitor
I muttered.
tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more.
Are we scared yet? Bart, he's establishing mood.
Ah, distinctly.
So that's one of the most interesting parts of that, I think. Watch it if you have time. It really should be watched. This is one of the best interpretations of the Raven that exists, honestly. But Bart interjects, and in that interjection, we find out exactly what mood is, which is the feeling that the reader gets from the poem itself. And so Lisa admonishes him and says they're establishing mood, and that's exactly what they do. Oh, I do have the road not taken there. Let's see. Okay, so there is a reading assignment. So I have 4 chapters listed here, and I do want you to take a look at those, but I don't need you to read every single poem. I need you to find what is interesting to you and read that. I'd rather have you read a couple of poems several times than every poem once. Then the last thing for this is that I want you to attempt to write a sonnet or a villanelle. If you want to wait until after Wednesday, that's fine with me, because we're going to go over this in class a little bit. And let's make the due date after we come back from spring break. All right. I'm wondering. Nope, I think I'll wait on that one. Yeah, I think I'll wait on that one till Wednesday. So, yeah, so there we go. Unit 2, Lesson 2. Go all the way down, and you don't have to finish up the assignment, but you can if you want to. So that's what we got for today, and hopefully I'll be able to tell you all this in person, but if not, I'm going to get the video up right now, upload it to YouTube, and then get it uploaded here. All right, folks, have a wonderful couple days, and I'll see you on Wednesday.